What crazy thing happened when my mother-in-law lost her own Christmas game? My dad got hired as a mall Santa every October and got fired by December 23rd. Different malls, same reason. He'd steal from the charity bins or skim cash from the register, come home drunk, and blame me for everything wrong in his life, especially the fact that my mom left when I was 1. I don't remember her at all, but my dad made sure I knew it was my fault. She was fine until you showed up, he'd say, cracking open another beer on Christmas Eve while I ate cereal on the kitchen floor. I never had a tree, never had wrapped presents, never had anyone who actually wanted me in the room on December 25th. So when I met my boyfriend Pete in college and he invited me home for Christmas with his family, I thought I was finally going to see what a real family Christmas looked like. Pete's mom, a woman named Vivian who had a gray bob she kept cut sharper than her kitchen knife, was the one who ran Christmas like a competition. Every year, the whole family brought one gift for each member of the family. At the end of the night, Vivian passed around slips of paper. Everyone wrote down their favorite gift of the night. Whoever got the most votes as best gift giver won the right to walk around the room and claim any single gift from anyone. Didn't matter who gave it or who it was for. Winner takes their pick. The same 5 or 6 relatives always voted for Vivian. Not because her gifts were better, but because voting against her meant being her target for the rest of the year. Pete grew up in this. To him, it was just how Christmas worked. My first year there, I didn't know any of the rules. I brought Pete a vintage first edition copy of his favorite childhood book that I'd spent 3 months tracking down through estate sales. Cost me almost $400, which back then was basically my entire savings as a college student. For his parents, I brought candles and wine. Standard stuff. When Pete opened the book, he teared up and held it against his chest. His dad smiled. Vivian's jaw tightened. At the end of the night, votes came in. Pete voted for my gift. His dad voted for my gift. Everyone else voted for Vivian and her bulk-bought cashmere scarves. Vivian won. She stood up, scanned the room slowly, and pointed directly at the book in Pete's hands. That one. Pete handed it over without a word. Vivian tucked it under her arm and said, "What a lovely evening, everyone." I sat there waiting for someone, anyone, to react. Nobody did. The next 2 Christmases blurred together. I spent weeks and hundreds of dollars making personalized gifts for every member of Pete's family. Both years, Vivian won. Both years, she took whatever gift had the most emotional weight. The second year, I made a restored photo scrapbook for Pete's grandmother filled with family pictures from the 60s that I'd found in a forgotten box in his dad's attic. It took me over 40 hours. Vivian won, chose the scrapbook, flipped through it once, said, "How sweet," and set it on the counter next to a half-eaten pie. She didn't want the best gift. She wanted to remind everyone who was in charge. I kept my mouth shut every time because I was just the girlfriend. I didn't have standing. However, as the years passed, Pete and I got married, moved out of state for his job, and had 2 kids. For 3 years straight, we skipped his family's Christmas and did our own thing. Quiet mornings, pajamas, pancakes, kids ripping open gifts on the living room floor. It was everything I never had. Then Vivian called and said the family missed us, and the kids needed a real family Christmas. Pete said he wanted to go. I agreed because I thought distance might have changed things. It hadn't. The year we spent with the in-laws, my 5-year-old daughter had made me a bracelet out of beads and string at school. She wrapped it herself in tissue paper and tape and handed it to me in front of the whole family with this enormous, proud smile. "I made it just for you, Mommy." I put it on immediately. At the end of the night, Vivian won again. She stood up, scanned the room, walked straight to me and said, "I'll take the bracelet." I stared at her. "My daughter made this for me." "Rules are rules," she said, holding out her hand. Pete's dad studied his napkin. His aunt suddenly needed more wine. I unclasped it and handed it over because my daughter was watching and I didn't want her to see a fight. Later that night, I found the bracelet in Vivian's bathroom trash. She hadn't even kept it on for an hour. My daughter asked me before bed why Grandma Viv took her bracelet. I told her Grandma just really liked it. That night, I sat in the guest room and something shifted inside me permanently. I decided I wasn't trying to fit in anymore. I was trying to win. And if Vivian wanted a competition, I was going to give her one she'd never forget. I started in January, 11 months out. I kept a spreadsheet tracking every family member's interests, sizes, hobbies, and things they'd mentioned wanting throughout the year. I stopped muting the family group chat and started actually paying attention. I asked about what Vivian gave each year so I could study her patterns. By October, I had 13 individually tailored gifts ready. Not just thoughtful, strategic. Every single one was personal, irreplaceable, and impossible to beat on pure emotion. Christmas night came. Pete's grandmother opened the quilt I'd had sewn from her late husband's old shirts. She pressed it to her face and didn't speak for a full minute, but the tears pouring from her eyes told me everything I needed to know. Pete's dad unfolded the letter I'd found through an online veteran service, written by his own father decades ago when he was at war. His hands shook. He had to leave the room. Vivian watched all of this from her chair, very still. Then she passed out her slips of paper. Everyone voted. Vivian collected the slips and unfolded them one by one. I watched her fingers slow down as the same name kept appearing, mine. She read the last slip, set it down carefully, and didn't look up for a full 3 seconds. When she finally raised her head, the room was silent. I won. For the first time in the history of that family, someone other than Vivian had won. I stood up and walked to Vivian's chair. Her sister had given Vivian a designer handbag. Nice, expensive, completely impersonal. I pointed at it. "I'll take that one." Vivian put her hand on the bag. "No." I blinked. "No, you're not taking my gift. I don't care what the votes say." I looked around the table. Pete's dad was staring at his plate. His aunt was frozen mid-sip. "You've taken my gifts for years," I said. "You took a bracelet my 5-year-old daughter made with her own hands, and now that someone else wins, the rules just don't apply anymore." Vivian leaned forward and her voice dropped low. "You didn't even have a real Christmas before us. You should be grateful we let you play." Nobody said a word. Vivian looked at Pete. "Tell your wife how things work here." Pete opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His dad cleared his throat. "Let's just skip this part tonight. 30 years of tradition, and the second it didn't benefit Vivian, she threw it out." I stood up. "We're leaving." Pete didn't argue, just took our daughter's hand and walked out behind me. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep holding a candy cane, and Pete said quietly, "I should have said something years ago." We never went back. Vivian called twice. Pete's dad texted once. We didn't respond. That next Christmas morning, Pete made French toast. I put on music. Our kids opened their gifts mess on the living room floor, screaming and throwing wrapping paper everywhere. Nobody voted. Nobody stole anything. Pete sat next to me on the couch holding his coffee, watching our kids be genuinely happy, and said, "This is what it's supposed to feel like." I squeezed his hand.